This is a tale out of a Southern Gothic novel. Greed, jealousy, false trails, envy. It was a fairy tale Cinderella kind of story that's supposed to have a happy ending.
Great look to right.
Lorenzen was an absolute force on the court.
He was an instant millionaire.
Just as fast as he was making money, money was being spent.
He loved the ladies. The ladies loved him too.
It was almost like he was just blind with love.
She put moves on him like karate chop that they don't do in Mississippi.
She saw a future with a millionaire.
And then, out of the blue, Lorenzen Wright went missing.
If he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is.
Developing tonight, a former player disappeared and...
We got to investigate.
What was your interaction like with the police?
I was on them. Check this person out and this person out. I am the mother of Lorenzen Wright.
I mean, that's a mother's love for their child.
Oh my God, when I heard that story,
I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone.
Is it impossible that his friends, people who knew him and loved him, might not have known about this other side?
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
To actually hear the 911 call is blood-curdling.
and you hear gunshot.
You hear that dispatcher say hello over and over again.
Hello? Hello?
You hear the gunshots and you hear silence.
I don't have nothing but gunshots.
That 911 call and what would come after would start a mystery in the city of Memphis that would transfix it for more than a decade.
It was the whodunit of all cases in Memphis history.
Describe Memphis to me.
Great city, great town. Culture.
I think Memphis.
Elvis Presley even recorded the song Memphis, Tennessee about his hometown.
Long distance information, give me Memphis, Tennessee.
But I think of the blues. I think of B.B. King, I think of Beale Street. Memphis is the birthplace of the blues and rock and roll.
People in Memphis love to talk about the music. What they don't like to talk about as much is the crime.
Every time you turn the TV on, you hear of someone being murdered.
3 people were shot and 1 man died.
Being robbed.
An attempted robbery led to shots being fired.
A stab, a shot.
But the shooting took place on Chestnut.
It's an ongoing thing, man.
Memphis has always been this city of haves and have-nots.
Probably 30 to 40% of our people are below the poverty line. And Memphis has had its share of crime through the years.
These disparities, both racial and economic, they're still there in Memphis.
But one thing brings Memphis together, and that's basketball.
Basketball bridged a racial divide in Memphis.
It's one of those binding things that brings people together from all walks of life.
You gotta understand, people from Memphis, they just love whoever plays for them. So imagine if that player is homegrown.
Trail by 5, dribble drive, left hand followed by Lorenzen Wright.
That love then just becomes off the charts. This is why what happened to Lorenzen Wright was such a big deal. It's why I went there, to really sit down and talk to the people who knew him best. Who is Lorenzen Wright?
Lorenzen Wright was one of the best human beings that ever drew breath on this earth.
A lot of good basketball players come out of here. He was one who really made it big.
It was even noted on TV broadcasts.
He come to Memphis as a superstar, so his name was all over the media, it was all over the press.
He stood out. He was a hometown hero.
My name is Deborah Marion, and I am the mother of Lorenzen Wright.
Describe what it was like bringing Lorenzen into this world.
Ooh, honey. First of all, he was a big child. He couldn't just lay in my lap, because he was just too long.
So he was so long his head came off your knees?
Yes.
His mother had him at a very young age, and he was raised by his mother and grandmother within the same home.
Lorenzen's mom and dad were never married, and Lorenzen's dad, Herb, didn't live in the family home, but he was still a big part of Lorenzen's life.
by 7th, 8th grade, he was already playing with the high school team. And that's when they decided to move to get him around better competition.
Literally everywhere, they were talking about Lorenzen, even in high school. Yes.
So Lorenzen decides that he's going to go to Memphis State.
The folks in Memphis love it when Cincinnati comes a-calling. A sellout crowd expected tonight at the Pyramid.
Lorenzen drew people to the Coliseum to watch basketball. They didn't know anything about basketball.
The entire city was just buzzing with the excitement of him playing for the college.
Continues to go to, look at Lorenzen Wright on the jam.
Lorenzen was an absolute force on the court.
Exciting, athletic, big.
He loved people. He loved children. He was just a big baby.
He was a yes sir, yes ma'am person. He was raised right. That was Lorenzen.
He always had that big smile with him. That smile would just light you away. It would always get anybody.
He was only in Memphis a couple of years before he went to the NBA.
Now it's the time for me to accept the challenge of playing with the best basketball players in the nation.
That NBA draft was on TV.
The Los Angeles Clippers select Lorenzen Wright from the University of Memphis.
Memphis just exploded. We were so happy, so joyous.
It felt like we all got drafted. We just went crazy.
He was an instant millionaire, and the Clippers would make the playoffs in Lorenzen's rookie season.
It was definitely life-changing for him.
People started calling him the Howl, because after he would score or dunk, he would let off this huge howl, like he was a wolf howling at the moon.
The transition out to California was a very, very big move. Money was no object.
It was a culture shock. Memphis is a big city, but it's a big southern city, and it's not like Los Angeles.
A few years later, that didn't matter. Lorenzen Wright was going back home.
Join me in welcoming Lorenzen Wright.
To be able to play high school ball, to play college ball, and then to play in the NBA in front of your hometown, I don't know if it gets any better than that.
The whole town is excited to have Lorenzen back, and he shows his gratitude by spreading his wealth around.
He is that proverbial guy that would take the shirt off his own back and give it away.
He took care of his childhood friends a lot, right? What would he do for them?
Cars for him and everything. Let him stay with him.
His house was the spot to hang out in. It was like Disneyland at his house.
He had a gigantic pool in the back. The number of bedrooms he had, the entertainment, it was really, really nice.
And he purchased his mother a home literally 3 minutes away.
At one point, he buys you a house. What did that feel like for you?
Oh, my, look at my baby. Look at my baby.
The little shortcut from Lorenzen's house to his mom's house was a little road.
Didn't nobody else parent live on one end and the child live on the other. That was our road, our little cut through.
It's called Callus Cutoff. Callus Cutoff.
It's not a road you want to drive down there. No lights.
That was a road that if you didn't know it was there, you didn't know it was there.
It's in the city, but it's actually just feels like you're out in the country. I mean, heavy woods on both sides. If you're driving, you just want to drive on through it. You don't want to stop.
Lorenzen had driven that shortcut maybe hundreds of times, and nothing had ever happened. He probably never thought for a moment that it might be dangerous.
And then, out of the blue, Lorenzen Wright went missing.
Police have joined in the search for missing NBA player Lorenzen Wright as his family is starting to fear the worst.
This is a millionaire. He's a basketball player. If he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is.
It was a fairy tale Cinderella kind of story that's supposed to have a happy ending.
That was the biggest mistake he ever made in his life. I think Lorenzen's strength came from the work ethic that his father instilled in him. On the court, he was a beast. Off the court, he was just a meek and mild individual.
So really, basketball was Lorenzen's entire life, really. Lorenzen met his wife through basketball.
Cheryl came into the picture his junior year of high school. He met her over the summer, playing AAU basketball, and her dad was his coach.
Golden brown skin, beautiful smile. She looked really good. Very sexy.
She was easy on the eyes. I don't think he had never, ever came in contact with anyone that looked like Sherrod. I mean, she had all the goods.
We would say she knew she was fine and you didn't have to tell her.
There is a discrepancy about exactly when they started dating. Depending on who you talk to, she was in college when he was in high school.
He's a junior in high school, and here he is dating a junior in college, you know? He thought he was big time then.
They became friends, stayed in contact, and a few years later, that's when the relationship went from a friendship to a romantic relationship.
It was almost like he was just blind with love, right?
Yes. That girl crazy. She put moves on him like karate chop that they don't do in Mississippi.
I was hearing that Cheryl was wanting to get pregnant and to marry Lorenzen, assuming that he was going to be this great NBA basketball player.
When she saw Lorenzen, she saw a future with a millionaire.
Some of the people closest to Lorenzen see Shara as a gold digger.
So, were you concerned?
Very. He was listening on us, and I kind of like cooled down because I said, if I gotta like her a little bit, you know, to keep my son close to me.
You didn't try to disrupt the relationship because he loved her.
Exactly.
Deborah and Cheryl, they never got along. These two, they never liked each other. When she got pregnant, he was excited about it. You know, obviously his parents wasn't.
I don't think this was a situation where she was chasing Lorenzen and eventually wore him down to be with her. I think, if anything, it was the other way around.
So while we're in college doing the fraternity thing, she was about to give birth to Lorenzen Jr. at the time.
In between class and practice time, he would go see his baby.
Some of his friends and family feel that Shara has trapped him.
She knew once she had a child, it was over, marriage, because he wanted to be in the house with his child.
And at that point, you knew that she was going to get married to him.
Yes.
It was a couple years later after they got married. Of course, he had always told us that he wanted a big family.
As Lorenzen's NBA career blossoms, so does his family. He has a son, Lorenzen Jr., a daughter, Lauren, twins, Lamar and Shamar, Sophia, Lawson, and a daughter, Sierra, who died tragically of SIDS.
That could take a toll on any marriage, even a good one.
Family was everything to him.
For Lorenzen, his kids was everything to him. He spent his whole life, and everything he valued was based on his kids and love for his kids.
What were those early days in the NBA? What was the marriage like between Shara and Lorenzen?
It was good.
The two of them were living well together. They were getting along.
Yes.
For an NBA player in a marriage, there's good news and bad news. The good news, you're making millions of dollars to support your wife and your family.
They had money. They had money, and they could go and buy things. And he loved cars, and she loved jewelry, and, you know, they spent a lot of money.
Just as fast as he was making money, money was being spent.
The bad news, you're on the road a lot, and that comes with temptations.
He's a ladies' man. He loved the ladies. The ladies loved him, too.
And he would tell me every time the plane touched down, they'd be already there waiting. They were always trying to connect, trying to find out where the hookup places would be after the game.
Now, do I know that he cheated? Yes, hell, I know. I was with him half of the time.
When did they start struggling and why?
When he caught her with that guy.
He caught her being unfaithful.
Yes.
And that's when things started breaking down.
Yes.
The infidelity happened, to be fair, on both sides. So the marriage was complicated.
I think what happened to the marriage was that, you know, they grew apart. Maybe there was some greed issues there. He would say things like, man, it's just always about money with her.
Did they have a lot of fights?
I've seen the evidence of some pretty bad brawls.
told me the marriage ended because he didn't trust Cheryl anymore. She felt the same about him, but they were still going to try to find a way to raise these kids.
At that point, how was his relationship with his kids?
Fine.
He said this, Cheryl is the one who filed for the divorce, not Lorenzen. But he was not going to fight for it because he wanted it over with as well.
The post-divorce life between Cheryl and Lorenzen Wright appeared to be routine until that one July day when he went missing.
At that point, we said bye. They get out of the car, I drive away, and that's the last time I see my friend.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
And when police would begin to pull back the curtain on Lorenzen's private life, the city of Memphis would learn some troubling new stories about its hometown hero.
There's another side to Lorenzen that you all don't know about.
It's the summer of 2010. Lorenzen Wright is living in Atlanta with his buddy Mike G.
When Lorenzen and Cheryl were divorced, he ended up moving to Atlanta. So I went and moved in on him, and, we just had a good time.
By this time, his NBA playing days are over. But what's not over, apparently, is his relationship with his ex.
Even though Shara and Lorenzen were divorced, they had certainly a physical relationship.
They still had an intimate relationship.
But it was more than just sex. People who know them say they were still in love and were even thinking of starting over.
Lorenzen did propose to Shara after they were divorced. The children saw him ask her to marry him, and Shara had said yes.
So on this one particular weekend that summer, Lorenzen's coming back to Memphis to visit. Shara calls him and asks him to go to a dance recital for their daughter, Lauren. And it turns out his sister, Denotra, is having a baby shower that weekend, too. So he's got a lot going on.
I drove Lorenzen to the airport and fly out to Memphis. As I look back and now, I think that something was going on because Lorenzen was always on edge that whole week, which I thought was unusual.
Whenever Lorenzen came to Memphis, Phil would be the first person that he would call.
Completely unexpected, out of the blue. He calls me and says, "Hey, bud, I'm in town. Let's hang out." Just bought a new vehicle, and I wanted him to ride in it, and we rode all around the city. He took a picture on my phone of himself that evening.
To look at that photo, you would never know that Lorenzen Wright's life was in serious danger.
Just after 10 p.m. on this hot July evening, temperatures just now dropping below 90 degrees. Doesn't look like we're going to have any relief in sight. This is Tim Van Horn, and you're listening to WREC.
Just a few hours later, a 911 call comes into the nearby town of Germantown, Tennessee.
Germantown is just east of Memphis. It's one of the smaller municipalities right outside of Memphis.
It's a very short call, and you hear a desperate voice on there. You hear a series of gunshots.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 I have nothing but gunshots.
There's no caller ID, so the dispatcher doesn't know where the call is coming from specifically. They thought this call was a hang-up.
There was no follow-up.
Operator picks up the phone.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
And you hear gunshots.
Hello?
To me, that calls for immediate response.
Like, you leave it alone. You leave it alone?
For our report, 2020 reached out to the Germantown Police Department to ask why they didn't immediately follow up on that 911 call. They declined to speak with us. But at the time, a department review concluded that dispatchers properly followed procedures.
It was an opportunity lost. Because on that call is the last time anybody would hear Lorenzen's voice.
I probably called him 4 or 5 times that night. And I texted him about 3 or 4 times. And I just really figured that, maybe he had fallen asleep.
He was supposed to be coming to the baby shower. I kept calling him all that day and he didn't answer the phone.
I was getting married July 20th in the Virgin Islands. And so he said that he was going to come over and be my best man. I get a phone call from one of my other great friends saying, hey man, Lorenzen is missing.
His friends weren't really concerned in the beginning because that was just Lorenzen.
It's like still living that NBA life. Those guys, they'd hop on a plane and go to Vegas.
Not hearing from him, it wasn't out of the norm.
But when Lorenzen's mother found out that he wasn't even calling his daughter Lauren back, that was too much for her. She filed a missing persons report.
When I first got the news, I got a phone call. Did you hear that Lorenzen was missing? Initially, I was not alarmed. I'm thinking if he's missing, he doesn't want us to know where he is. It's on purpose. I became concerned when I saw the concern in her face and in her voice.
When that missing persons report is made officially known, it becomes a major news story.
Developing tonight, a former player for both the Memphis Tigers and the Grizzlies has disappeared, and now his family is worried about his safety.
Talk just spread all over Memphis. Where's Lorenzen? What's going on?
So the Memphis Police Department starts a missing persons investigation. When somebody goes missing, you have to look at their circumstances at the time. They look at their inner circle. Is anybody new? Did they owe anybody any money?
What was Lorenzen's financial condition after basketball?
It was not good. It was not good at all, and that really affected him greatly.
Lorenzen Wright made as much as $55 million playing basketball. But because he and Cheryl were spending like crazy, there actually wasn't that much left.
So to compensate, he always had some side businesses.
I think he was doing the side businesses just to, try to create other streams of income for when he did retire.
He wants to invest in something else, have other things going on, His dad ran his sports cafe for him. He also had a car detailing shop.
Among those off-the-court business relationships, there would be one relationship that would come back to haunt Lorenzen Wright, a man named Bobby Cole.
Bobby Cole was a high-level drug dealer. How would Lorenzen be connected to a drug dealer? But Cole was not only a drug dealer, he was also a race car driver, and Lorenzen, as it turned out, loved cars. At some point they meet, and Cole agrees to buy 2 of Lorenzen's cars.
I remember him telling me, man, I sold the guy my cars. Now, what the guy was doing, I did not know.
The feds had actually looked into this long before Lorenzen Wright disappeared to see if any of his transactions with Bobby Cole involved drugs or drug money.
And the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, actually investigated that connection, interviewed Bobby Cole. They didn't find any connection.
But those drug rumors would actually start swirling again, this time when police interviewed his ex-wife, Cheryl.
She also told law enforcement that about 6 weeks earlier, she had gotten a visit from some unknown individuals that wanted to do Lorenzen some harm.
Cheryl Wright, in talking to investigators, claims that she saw Lorenzen leaving with a man she didn't know, carrying a box with drugs.
Kind of painting this portrait of a guy who's troubled, who's lost all his money. He's trying to make money illegally.
Is it impossible that people who knew him and loved him might not have known about this other side that involved drugs?
Well, it's possible, but he told me about everything that he was dealing with. And I believe that if he had been doing that, I believe he would have told me.
This whole idea that he was involved in drugs, what did you make of that?
Y'all don't want me to say what I want to say.
But the police are on the brink of a breakthrough.
The investigation made a dramatic turn when Memphis police found out about that Germantown 911 call.
That revelation eventually leads investigators to that desolate road, the Callous Cutoff, the shortcut from Lorenzen's house to his mom's. And there, they will make a chilling discovery.
Since I've been growing, I've been strong and tall. I ain't ever met nobody that could keep me on a bar.
Lorenzen Wright's disappearance was all over Memphis TV.
Lorenzen Wright has not been seen since Sunday.
One local news crew even got his ex-wife Shara to come to the door.
He was fine. And he's fine now, and I'm not gonna believe anything other than that. He's fine now.
In those days after Lorenzen went missing, his friends are all trying to come up with plausible explanations as to where Lorenzen might be, that maybe he is fine. But there's one thing that keeps coming up, one thing that sticks out when they think back about the night he disappeared. In the hours after Lorenzen took that selfie in his friend's car, they remember that Lorenzen and Shara had a fight.
That evening, Phil and Lorenzen had been planning a father-son night with their boys. But suddenly, Lorenzen gets a call from Shara, and it was unpleasant.
I could hear Shara say, no, you bring him home now. He was like, okay, all right, fine. I don't want to argue with you. And so we drove on to the house.
Yeah, he was dropped off at Shara's house. He was just going to go see Shara.
And when we pull up at the house, he said, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to calm her down. And I'll call you later, and then we can go out.
So Phil drives away, having no clue that this is the last time he'll see his friend. Because a few hours later...
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency?
That 911 call, which might not have been investigated then.
Sound like nothing but gunshots.
But it is now. 9 days after Lorenzen went missing, police are all over it.
The call was revealed because they went back and checked their records, and they found that they had this desperate call from a man, 9 days earlier.
Once the 911 supervisors realized that there was a call made on that night, they did a triangulation and found the area that the call was made from. It's a rural area, a wooded area, not a lot of traffic.
And when police visit that wooded area, their worst fears are realized. They find the body.
Police in Memphis, Tennessee have found the body of former NBA player Lorenzen Wright.
Of course, it was a huge story on the local news.
They found him almost instantly. His body was found. There wasn't much left of it because it had been out there 9 days.
Even if you knew Lorenzen well, there was no way in the world that you could have identified his remains as him.
The condition of his body was shocking, that he had literally melted in the hot summer sun.
The 6'11", 255-pound NBA center was just 57 pounds when his body was found. Badly decomposed, investigators say he was shot at least 5 times.
When did you find out that he was dead?
When they found his body.
When I got that phone call, I just threw down the phone and just broke down,
It was really, really... It was really painful.
Me and my girlfriend jumped in her car and flew over there so quick. I was trying to get down there where he was because I wanted to walk his last step. Because me and him was like this.
So you went to the crime scene. It was as if you wanted to find a clue.
Right.
By literally walking in his footsteps.
You could see a mother's anguish in real time as news cameras capture her desperation to see her son.
Lorenzen Wright's mother was ushered behind the crime tape by MPD investigators. She was visibly upset but did not speak to the media before leaving the scene.
They had her on the news. Where's my baby? Screaming out, where's my baby?
Did the police let you get into the crime scene?
They let for a little bit, but they wouldn't let me get all where he was. They let me get under the tape. I went under the tape anyway. Of course, they tried to stop me.
Did you see your son?
Nope. They wouldn't let me get that far.
This area is woodsy, it's quiet, it's really remote. That area was also not very far from that shortcut where Lorenzen Wright once lived near his mother, the Callis Cutoff.
The Callis Cutoff? That was a shortcut Lorenzen had taken hundreds of times. It's a strange place for his body to show up. Was it a clue? No one was concentrating on it in that moment.
No one was talking about the fact that, that he lived nearby.
The body turning up there, does it narrow the scope of people who were involved in it, or does it widen it? It's still very hard to tell.
Publicly, yeah, there was a lot of talk about other people being involved.
You talked to people and asked, did you know anybody, any reason why anybody would want to hurt Lorenzen? Was he involved in illegal activity?
They also found shell casings and actual bullets.
Turns out police found shells from 2 different caliber weapons. This is a critical piece of evidence. It means that more than one gun was used in the shooting.
Lorenzen was shot 5 times, but he was shot with 2 different guns. So we got another shooter.
But then it got really real to us. And he's gone. Somebody has killed Lorenzen.
I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, who could have killed my friend? Why would somebody want him to die?
The answers wouldn't come quickly. In fact, it would take a book written 5 years later to shed new light on the case. A book written by none other than Shara herself.
And then this book comes out, which almost appears to give clues.
We honor and remember Lorenzen Wright.
Lorenzen's funeral was almost a state affair here in Memphis.
It was held at FedEx Forum, a place where he once played basketball as an NBA player. And now it was where thousands of people came out to mourn the loss of their hometown hero.
They put together a beautiful ceremony. His pledge brothers, we were all pallbearers for the funeral.
I was asked to do the eulogy.
His smile was infectious, his work ethic unmatched, his generosity prolific, and his commitment unswerving.
The thing that I remember the most about the funeral is Shara hugging me and saying, "Thank you for such a beautiful eulogy." Ren would have loved that.
It was such a tragic situation, seeing his kids suffer like that, knowing they'll never see their father again.
This tragic moment, that funeral, it morphs into this, whodunit, because no one knew who did it.
At the beginning of a case, you have to remain objective and you have to let the evidence lead you. You have to prepare yourself to be surprised sometimes.
This is now essentially a cold case because 9 days have passed. A body has been in sweltering heat, which degrades evidence tremendously.
The killers had a 9-day head start on us. There were no witnesses, so this was not an easy case at all.
Because in these kinds of things, the spouse is always a suspect. They're looking at Shara hard.
My number one suspect was the person that I hear everybody else talking about, was Shara.
You were suspicious of Shara at this point?
Yes.
Okay, did you tell the police?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
We got to investigate.
We thought she was being forthcoming with information, and in the midst of that, she chose to lawyer up.
Lawyering up may not look good, but it doesn't mean she had anything to do with the man's murder. You need evidence if you're going to arrest someone.
And so far, there is no evidence that points to Shara.
And she denies involvement on a local interview.
If I knew who did this to Lorenzen, you would know who did this to Lorenzen.
When Shara was not arrested, maybe she didn't do it. Then started thinking about, what about the drug thing? Maybe that went wrong some kind of way.
They were absolutely looking for guys who had come into Memphis, hitmen, to kill Lorenzen, and that just didn't make any sense at all. If a guy owes you a lot of money, what point is it killing him? You'll never get your money back by killing him.
We did look into it. If the ex-wife is telling us this, we have to investigate it.
What was your interaction like with the police?
I was on them.
How often did you go down there?
Every day.
Every day? Saying, I want you guys to get on this and find his killer.
And this person did this, and check this person out, and this person out.
We'll just say mama bears take care of their cubs. She was relentless in her pursuit of justice for him.
Not to let her son's life and legacy just go down the drain. I mean, that's a mother's love for their child.
Deborah Marion says she'll keep fighting until her son's killers are held accountable.
I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna give up.
Every anniversary of his murder, she did a candlelight vigil.
Deborah Marion says the vigil is for family, friends, and the public to come together and remember Lorenzen.
Every birthday, she would release balloons at his gravesite.
My son ain't did nothing to nobody to be murdered.
But all of Deborah's efforts aren't making any difference. For years, the police don't arrest anyone, and Shara seems to have moved on with her life.
After his death, she became more involved in the church that she had already been a part of and did actually become a pastor in that church.
To me, of course, my own prejudice admitted she was no preacher. Her lifestyle had not changed, and she was just always after the money.
The people who want to accuse Shara of being involved in Lorenzen's murder point to the fact that she did receive $1 million payout from his life insurance policy.
Shara ended up in a long, protracted legal battle with Lorenzen's father, Herb, and he claimed that she was spending money on extravagant items and not on the children.
I didn't work from the time we separated.
She was buying fancy cars, and it got pretty dirty. You know, it was all of them in court, you know, fighting over the money.
That's common for family members to fight over proceeds and to end up in court. So that didn't have any significant impact on the case.
But an investigator never knows when something odd will come up. And in this case, something odd and unexpected does come up. Shara writes a book.
Cheap dime store novel type of book that is very curious, has a lot of clues about, you know, what happened.
The book is called Mr. Tell Me Anything. It's the story of a woman who has a tumultuous marriage with an NBA player. It's supposed to be fictitious, but it doesn't seem that way.
It's almost like a confession that falls short of fully confessing, and she wants publicity. So I interviewed her in July of 2015 for about an hour and a half. Shara, I'm going to need you to speak up because I'm worried about the background noise.
Commercial appeal reporter Mark Paraschia conducts an extensive interview with Shara at a restaurant called J. Alexander's. It's a busy, trendy restaurant chain in Memphis.
Let me ask you this, Shara. The book, why did you write it? What are you hoping to accomplish?
In marriage, I mean, you go through your ups and downs. I just believe that when the downs become more overwhelming and there's more downs than ups, then that's the time to kind of go back and see which one outweighs the other.
In the interview, Shara explains that the NBA player depicted in the book is abusive, not just verbally, but physically. And she claims the character is based on Lorenzen.
Lorenzen had a problem with keeping his hands to himself. Or Mr. Tell Me Anything, this character did. And I grew him from Lorenzen, like I produced him from experiences with Lorenzen. And so, yeah, he had a problem with that.
You're planning a sequel too, right? If I read that right.
Yeah.
When is that coming out?
It's 90% done. It's going to take you all the way up to Mr. Tell Me Anything's death and just a little bit past it.
Is Mr. I mean, I don't want to give away your book, but is Mr. Tell Me Anything murdered?
Oh, yes, he is.
That was a kind of chilling moment in the recording. But see, it gives Paraschia an invitation to ask about the real-life circumstances surrounding Lorenzen's death.
Any idea who did this? Or
I don't know.
She missed her husband. She wanted them to find the killers, and that there's no reason for anybody to suspect her. Did you have anything to do with his murder or his disappearance?
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm an author. And the police should find his killer. For my name to be even in the same sentence or something like that, I'm a minister of the Lord, and I've never been in any type of trouble or anything. I'm a mother, an author, and a wife.
She just flat denies it. To me, she had was very convincing.
But Shara would soon appear very convincing to another reporter who comes to do a story on her. His name is Kelvin Cowens, and he's about to commit a cardinal sin for a professional journalist.
And I was like, she's tall, she's beautiful, I'm in trouble. We started dating immediately.
Kelvin Cowens may believe he's found true love, just as a Memphis dive team finds something critical at the bottom of this lake.
The Memphis Tigers and the Grizzlies has disappeared, and now his family is worried about his safety.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello?
This is almost like a tale out of a Southern Gothic novel. Greed, jealousy, false trails, envy, cold-blooded murder is compelling on so many levels.
It's a soap opera gone awry.
Wright was found in a wooded area just outside Memphis.
This is not only a news story, but it's a sports celebrity story. It's a murder story all wrapped into one.
It's just one of those things that I could never put together. How does such an amazing guy end up dead and in a field?
It was a case that until we solved it, it was going to hunt us. It was literally going to hunt us.
But his mother, God bless her heart, she continued to keep it in the forefront, to keep it going.
I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna give up.
But Deborah wouldn't give up on it.
She is absolutely the heroine. She is the hero of this story. She harassed literally the police department every day.
She kept the heat on the police. She was in the news media for years, criticizing them for not doing enough to finding out who killed her son.
She basically told me once I became the director, you're going to solve my son's murder. And you're not going to get rid of me.
You let everybody know that you would not rest until your son's killer was found.
Yes.
I wanted to solve it really, really bad. You know, not only for the city, for Lorenzen's mom and for his kids. I've never seen a mom to be that emotionally distraught over the murder of her child. And I've investigated a lot of murders. She was heartbroken. She was heartbroken, and it was very difficult for me to watch.
So while the case has gone cold, Lorenzen's ex-wife, Shara, has not withdrawn from the public, and many people are suspicious of that. The book she's written, supposedly fictitious, called Mr. Tell Me Anything, it's making headlines and raising eyebrows.
And it seemed to garner the attention of one man in particular, Kelvin Cowens. Cowens was a journalist who interviewed Shara about her book. He was one of the people I really wanted to talk to when I visited Memphis because of how close he said he got to her. What is Mr. Tell Me Anything?
For me, it was the inside look at an NBA wife.
What does the man do to the woman in this book?
Oh, man. He breaks her. He breaks her mind, he breaks her will. According to the book, affairs, there is some domestic violence in there.
I believe that the stories that were described in that book are based on what really happened, yes.
It does make Lorenzen look like a really bad guy.
In this book, there are specific descriptions of violence. And what do you make of that?
I just don't believe it. I think that is purely fiction.
If he was all of that, why she stayed with him so long? She could have got a divorce at any time and got plenty of money. Girl, please. I don't believe nothing she say. If she tell me that her hair is black, I said, no, it's orange.
I just believed it. I was like, she's bearing all.
Kelvin Cowens doesn't just believe her. He says he was romantically falling for her. It's something that as a journalist, he admits was crossing a line.
While they were dating, and even after they moved to Houston, she completely convinces him that she had nothing to do with Lorenzen's murder.
Well, I'm like, if she had done something, they'd have her by now. I mean, I would have never moved away with her if I thought she was a killer.
Shara moved out of Memphis because she was tired of the suspicion and all the negative publicity she was receiving here.
Did anybody know who she was in Houston? Did anybody
treat her in a certain way because of that?
No one treated her different. No one treated the kids different. It just wasn't a subject. We were embraced in Houston.
She moves to Houston, appears to live a quiet life, but one problem. Kelvin said he never could quite get used to Shara's love for money.
That was like, oh my God, not about money again.
Callan says they started arguing because he says long after the fight over the insurance money, Shara still wanted more from the estate, and he claims it blew apart their relationship. Why was it the last straw?
Greed. I cannot believe that, your apex of life is still, how much more money can I get?
And you couldn't live with that?
I couldn't.
The relationship ends. Shara moves to California with the kids to be near her brother, and Kelvin moves back to Memphis. Neither of them are aware that the Memphis police are about to take a new look at Lorenzen's murder.
They call it Operation Rebound. They want to rebound, to use a basketball term, go through the evidence one more time, find that one key break.
I received a phone call from the Memphis Police Department, and he said, we want to run through everybody's story again.
By now, Tony Armstrong has left the department, but he's still following the case closely.
I immediately thought, okay, somebody has gotten themselves in a tight spot, and they're starting to talk.
The police suddenly announced, we found the murder weapon in a lake in Mississippi.
News about finding at least one of the guns was all over local news.
7 years later, the gun the killer may have used was found in a lake in Walnut, Mississippi in Tippah County.
How did you hear about them finding the gun in the lake?
They called me. The news got around town. They found the gun.
And I'm like, what? You found after all this time, how? And now the next thing I'm thinking, okay, now who was it? Who killed Lorenzen?
And that's when this man enters the story. A man who cops say is the whole reason they found that gun in the lake in the first place. Because he claims he knows who put it there.
You mean what? Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me?
There is a Bible verse that says you can be sure that your sin will find you out. I knew someone was going to talk, and I knew for certain it was going to involve Shara.
The rebirth of the Lorenzen Wright murder investigation largely is built around Jimmy Martin.
Jimmy Martin was a 34-year-old former rap artist who went by the name of Trickster. He was also Shara Wright's cousin. Martin was convicted in a totally unrelated case with killing his girlfriend. But according to prosecutors, that's when he approached cops with a story about what he says happened to Lorenzen.
It was in between the conviction for second-degree murder and his sentencing that Jimmy Martin offered this story.
I can see him saying, you know what, I'm in big trouble. I need to give them some information that's going to lessen my time.
He meets with investigators and he has a story to tell.
So what you are about to hear is what prosecutors said in court is Jimmy Martin's story about what he says happened to Lorenzen. Jimmy tells investigators that Shara Wright is involved in Lorenzen's murder with one other person, a man named Billy Ray Turner.
Billy was the guy that cut the grass.
Billy Ray Turner was a landscaper, a yard man, who happened to be a deacon in a small country church that Shara attended.
Here's what Jimmy Martin supposedly told prosecutors about that landscaper, Billy Ray Turner.
Jimmy Martin says that he had once gone to Atlanta with Billy Ray Turner to try to kill Lorenzen. Remember, Lorenzen had moved to Atlanta after his divorce in 2010 and moved in with his old buddy, Mike Gibson.
I had no clue, no awareness of anything like this.
Prosecutors say Shara was also in Atlanta around this time.
There's underpinnings to Jimmy Martin's story because, she did show up down there.
I can remember her coming to Atlanta for the first time to see the condo. Very unusual. She had never been down there.
And while Shara was there at the condo, Jimmy alleges, she was setting the stage for a murder.
Jimmy Martin says Shara Wright left the window open so he and Billy Ray Turner could go inside to kill Lorenzen Wright.
In court, prosecutors detail step by step what Jimmy Martin says happened next.
Billy Ray and Jimmy Martin go through a window and they're looking for Lorenzen, but they can't find him.
Turns out that Lorenzen wasn't even home at that moment.
But I was there laying on the couch. Had I had woke up, or had Lorenzen been there, we'd both be dead.
The story Jimmy Martin tells investigators is that there's another man asleep on the couch, so they don't go through with the plan.
With that attempt foiled, prosecutors allege a new plot to kill Lorenzen was hatched. This time, they say, unfortunately, it worked.
The body of former pro basketball player Lorenzen Wright has apparently been found in Memphis. Sources say it appeared Wright had been shot several times.
Martin claims to investigators that a few days after Lorenzen's death, Shara and Turner confessed to him that they murdered Lorenzen. And that he helped them clean up the crime scene. Prosecutors said in court that Martin told cops that a metal detector was used to try to find a gun that was dropped during the murder there. Martin claims that he and Turner drove to Walnut, Mississippi, where he alleges Turner threw a gun in a lake. That lake is about 45 miles from Memphis, and in 2017, that's where the FBI conducted that search and found a gun at the bottom.
They were able to do forensics on this pistol that was recovered and determined that those shell casings came from that gun.
Even though police know that there were 2 weapons used in the shooting, this evidence alone is huge.
Developing right now, new information in the unsolved murder of Lorenzen Wright. Authorities now say a gun found over the summer may be the one used in the crime.
They're announcing, we found this gun. Why are they doing that? The reason they were doing that is they were telegraphing to the suspects to put them in a panic mode.
So law enforcement starts monitoring Shara and Billy Ray's cell phones and allege they learn incriminating information.
Law enforcement is able to record those calls.
Next thing you know, boom, there's this guy on TV. They're handcuffing.
46-year-old Billy Turner sits behind bars this morning, arrested at a Carterville gas station.
It was a standard arrest. There was no incidents to it. This person who, for the past 25 years, had not had any sort of troubles.
A real nice guy, always just laughing. No, he never showed aggression or anything like that.
I'm just like, who is Billy Ray Turner? Who is that?
I've never heard about Billy Ray Turner. The only thing that I knew, and I ended up putting 2 and 2 together, is that Lorenzen, he told me, Cheryl's sleeping with everybody in Memphis. She even sleeping with her gardener, which was Billy Ray.
Continuing coverage for you now this midday about the suspect charged with killing former Memphis basketball player Lorenzen Wright. Billy Turner entered a not guilty plea on charges that he murdered Wright more than 7 years ago.
Emotions were extremely heavy in Billy Ray Turner's first appearance in a Shelby County courtroom.
And these hearings were televised, right?
Yes.
That's how high the interest was.
Yes. They would break into the regular day programming. It was like the big thing here.
New developments this midday in the 2010 murder case of Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
When I saw him, I knew instantly she had used him because that's not what she want. He ain't had no money. She don't deal with no grass cutter.
Good morning, sir. You have a mother who searched for answers for all of these years and then finally associate a face with the person responsible for taking my son's life. and all of the emotions just came out.
I jumped up and I asked him, how could you have murdered my son?
Little did Deborah know this mystery in Memphis wasn't even close to being solved. It's Billy Ray Turner's arraignment, the first time anyone has ever gone before a judge in connection with Lorenzen Wright's murder.
The victim's mother was emotional at the sight of Billy Turner in court.
Lorenzen Wright's mother stands up in the middle of the proceedings and yells,
how could you have murdered my son? That's what I need to know just how.
The atmosphere was one of just, wow. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room at that point.
Why? Who are you? We don't know you. It's like a stranger killing somebody.
Just right, step to the mic.
And I could see the pain in her, and I saw how she expressed that pain to him, and I knew it was real.
Ms. Wright, I understand your pain, and you're not helping your son, you're not helping the administration of justice by engaging in that sort of an outcome. If that happens again, I would have to bar you from the courtroom, and I don't want to do that to you, Mrs. Wright. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, I told him what I wanted to.
But please don't do that again.
So I shut my mouth for the rest of the court.
Now the question is about Shara, who, remember, was living in California, but was never far from Deborah's mind.
We have Thursday night Bible study, and I got so emotional. I said, God, please get Cheryl Robinson right. Please. That's what I said that Thursday night. Friday, she was locked up.
Cheryl Wright Robinson was taken into custody last night in Riverside, California.
The news feed hit that said that she had been arrested for the murder of Lorenzen Wright, and I said, hot damn, they got her.
Cheryl Wright Robinson has been indicted for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, criminal attempt first-degree murder, and first-degree murder for her ex-husband, Lorenzen Wright.
And I'm like, I just spent almost 3 years of my life with a killer.
They'd extradite her and bring her back. It was Memphis Police Department's one of their finest moments of finally putting this thing together.
Today in court, Shara Wright, right there behind me, pleaded not guilty to killing her husband.
Shara, basically, I think the reality of finally being caught really took the life out of her.
In an orange jumpsuit, Shara Wright shook her head as Judge Lee Coffey laid down the law.
Ms. Wright does appear to be an ongoing danger to Shelby County, Tennessee.
Judge Coffey gave Wright a $20 million bond.
She looked horrible.
This is a bizarre situation. Shara, who's been this sexy, beautiful person with a lot of money, a lot of boyfriends, she's now on her way to jail. This is not going to work for her. It's not uncommon for people to act in a bizarre way in jail, particularly the ones who've never been in jail.
She began to unravel.
According to Jail East staff, Wright berated workers, stripped off her clothes, and flooded a toilet.
She was acting very strangely. She had stripped naked and yelled out, "I'm going swimming."
Ms. Wright's behavior yesterday is absolutely shocking.
I don't think she's right mentally. I think that's why she said she was going swimming in this jail cell.
I think all the things that she was doing while in jail were all acts of her trying to plead insanity. I did not buy that at all.
There was a lot of speculation as to whether or not she was being theatrical or had legitimate claims of what she was going through.
In a stunning new development inside the Shelby County courtroom Wednesday morning, Shara Wright's attorney stepped down.
I'm not certain what happened between Shara and her former lawyers.
And a new legal team steps in.
Quite frankly, we found that Shara was easy to work with.
She had been prescribed some medication that altered her behavior. Once we were appointed on the case, her behavior had stabilized and she had no significant problems after that.
I'm excited. I think we can do well. A case like this does not come along every day. And we were honored to defend Shara.
The objective is to give us the fairest opportunity to present our defense in the case.
Meanwhile, Billy Ray Turner is lawyered up too. He brings in one of Memphis's most high-profile attorneys.
John Keith Perry is kind of a rising star criminal defense lawyer. This is one of his, big cases.
There's a substantial amount of investigating that needs to continue. I was contacted by the family of Mr. Turner, and I've been on this case now since the end of 2017. We've read and listened to, I think, just about all of the discovery. Now you compile notes, lay out your outlines, see the points of attack. I've never had a reason to regret representing Billy Ray Turner.
According to his attorney, Billy Ray Turner has constantly said he had no involvement in the murder of Lorenzen Wright. He stands by that then, and he stands by that now.
We think that if given a fair slate, Mr. Turner will walk out with me. I absolutely think that he did not do it.
Perry has several questions about the alleged case against Billy Ray Turner, starting with his connection to Shara.
Some of the things that I've heard through the community about this super romance, and that he would have been willing to jump bridges and over rivers or whatever. I haven't seen that.
And more importantly, Perry says, consider the source. He says the prosecution's case starts with Jimmy Martin's story. And his criminal history, according to Perry, makes him not credible.
Could he be the one that did it? And absolutely. With the statement that he gave, how he gave that statement, and the fact that he is a convicted murderer, yes, there's an absolutely a chance that he could have committed the act himself. Credibility-wise, he would be low on the totem pole, I think.
Maybe he's just trying to minimize his involvement in all this. He's flipped, he's turned a deal.
So far, there is no proof that Jimmy Martin received any benefit from cooperating in the Lorenzen Wright case. But we do know he's never been charged in connection with Wright's murder. Neither Martin nor prosecutors would talk with us. But now the stage was set for a climactic trial in the Lorenzen Wright murder. Did you expect these cases to lead to conviction? And did you expect that to happen fairly quickly?
Once the gun was found, I did.
No case is a slam dunk. No murder case is a slam dunk.
However, no one was prepared for what would actually happen next.
I walk to the assignment desk, and she hangs up the phone and frantically says, I just got a tip. Go down to the courthouse.
A significant development in the Lorenzen Wright murder case.
A gun found over the summer may be the one used in the crime.
Shara Wright Robinson was taken into custody.
Well, the buildup was huge. We were expecting probably a weeks to months long trial.
The judge is expected to rule this spring on a host of pretrial motions from Shara Wright's and Billy Turner's legal teams.
They were going to be tried together as co-defendants. That was my understanding.
If Shara and Billy Turner were tried together, our defense could be consistent.
I think that the evidence in the case that the state has, we're anxious to get before 12 jurors and see what they think.
Anytime you have multiple suspects, people are going to start throwing each other under the bus. And inevitably, it basically boils down to who can cut the deal first.
In the several months that Billy Ray Turner and Shara Wright appeared together as defendants, there was always a lingering question. Which of them could potentially plead first?
I thought Billy was going to use his head. I thought he was going to take the plea first.
It became evident to Junie and me that the state wanted to work out a deal with Billy Turner.
A surprise twist tonight in the Lorenzen Wright murder case.
Shara's lawyers say they realized that troubling sign in June of 2019 when Billy Ray was in court for another matter.
He's never said that he had a firearm related to killing anyone at all.
Billy Ray's between a rock and a hard place. He's got a gun charge unrelated to the Wright murder and faces up to 20 years behind bars if he's found guilty. He decides he's got only one choice: plead guilty to the gun charge.
Now, is that what you want to do, sir? Yes. Has anyone threatened you, promised you anything, put any force any pressure on you in order to get you to give up these rights and plead guilty, sir?
Billy's convicted felon in possession of a handgun trial was scheduled in June of 2019, but on trial date, he pled open to the court.
Upon your plea of guilty to indictment 1801702, a Class B felon and being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, it is the judgment of this court, Mr. Turner, that you are guilty.
He pled open to the court. He doesn't know definitively what sentence he's going to get.
Shara's lawyers are seeing this play out, and they're really worried about it. Here's why. It's possible the judge could take pity on Billy Ray and reduce his sentence if he cooperates with authorities and testifies against Shara Wright.
His potential time was completely left up to the judge.
Thank you, sir. Step down from the witness stand, Mr. Turner.
That was highly unusual and to us indicated that he would be cooperating.
Shara's lawyers are not taking any chances. Her lawyers go to visit her in jail, and what they tell her would shock everyone. They say she needs to consider a plea deal.
We told her if Billy testifies against you, it's going to be disastrous.
Get Shara Wright to the courtroom, please.
One morning, out of the blue, we get a frantic phone call into our newsroom, a tip from the courthouse. Shara Wright plans to plead guilty.
In a stunning twist and unscheduled appearance this morning, Shara Wright agreed to a plea deal in the murder case of her ex-husband, Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
She realized that I'm not willing to roll the dice. I'm not willing to take a gamble on this, and she cut the deal.
No one had any foresight or knowledge that they were going to do that.
You raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you solemnly swear or affirm?
Everybody was sitting on the edge of their chairs.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, help you God.
Yes. They wanted to see what was Shara's role in this.
We know Shara Wright is there to plead guilty, but we don't know entirely what she's pleading guilty to.
Ms. Wright, the agreement that you have to say is that you would plead guilty to the included charge in count 1 to facilitation of first-degree murder.
In the deal, the 48-year-old pleaded guilty to 2 counts, facilitation of first-degree murder and facilitation of attempted first-degree murder.
Facilitating.
Yes, sir.
Facilitating the murder. I've never heard of that charge.
In the plea deal, Shara Wright pleads guilty to the lesser crimes of plotting the murder, but not the actual first-degree murder charge.
You are asking this court to find you guilty without a trial and set this punishment which has been recommended on your case. Now, is that what you want to do, Ms. Wright?
That is correct.
She admitted that she had facilitated Lorenzen's murder.
But she doesn't name Turner or any accomplices in pleading guilty. When you heard that Shara was entering a plea, what did you think?
She's trying to outsmart him. I think she just decided to bite the bullet, so to speak, on the murder and to figure a way to get the less amount of time that she could.
Prosecutors would not comment to 2020 about the case.
She knows she was finna go down, 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 way down. She wasn't gonna get no few years. She gonna get some lifetime.
Ms. Wright, it is the judgment of this court that you are guilty. This court sets your punishment at 30 years confinement in the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
She received a 30-year sentence, of which she'll serve 30% before release eligibility.
I think our prosecutors failed us, those of us that loved him. I think she played him.
My reaction was, I was sick in the stomach. I'm like, are you kidding me? She may only do 9 years. Lorenzen, he lost the rest of his life, and she may only have to do 9 years. I felt really bad, felt really sick. I said, that's not fair.
It's not about fairness.
Ms. Wright, Ms. Step down for witness stand. What you like now? Thank you, ma'am.
I think it's a concept the public wants to believe in. When the state and the defense comes to a negotiated plea agreement, then generally speaking, the court will approve it.
If the sentence surprised a lot of people in court, though, what came next was even more shocking.
Ms. Marion, when you were first in court, you had some things that you wanted to say.
Yes.
A mother is about to confront the woman who arranged her son's murder. After all these years, what will Deborah have to say?
Wright walked into the Shelby County courtroom this morning. She agreed to a plea deal in the murder case of her ex-husband, Memphis basketball star Lorenzen Wright.
Even after Shara pleads guilty to facilitating their father's murder, her children are said to be standing behind her.
I know the kids were, at some time, maybe still are in denial of Mama's involvement, and you can understand that.
The children support Shara because they love her.
The children were very aware of the complicated dynamic between Shara and Lorenzen. And so they came into this situation with all the history of what they experienced. So they had unique perspectives on what had occurred between them.
What do you think about the fact that they're standing with and supporting their mother?
Well, that's their mom. It's probably hard to see her as she truly is.
I hadn't seen them. I'm just going to love them from afar.
You can imagine a mother not just losing her son, but in the manner that it happened in all these years, suspecting it was Shara, and it turns out, yeah.
After she agreed to the deal, Lorenzen Wright's mother, Deborah Marion, spoke directly to her former daughter-in-law.
Marion, when you were first in court, you had some things that you wanted to say.
Yes.
Judge Coffey gave Deborah the opportunity to address Shara.
I will allow you to vocalize or verbalize anything that you want right now, Ms. Marion, because you have that right under our Constitution now.
I couldn't wait to hear what she was going to say.
The room was quiet, it was tense, and it was locked in as Lorenzen Wright's mother looked directly in the eye of Shara Wright.
I was thinking about it the whole while as it was going on, what I was going to say. But once I got up to that mic, my train of thought just changed. I focused on my grandkids.
But Sharon, I want to thank you for giving me my grandchildren. That's what I want to thank you for.
Instead of anger and outrage, she looks at Shara Wright and gives more of a sense of compassion and family and love.
But I want you to unlock them so I can visit them, so they can see their grandma. Because Sophia keep calling, she wants to come make chicken and dumplings. She wants to come.
And I didn't expect her to bring up the kids, but I was so glad that she did.
But I want you to call them. No, it's okay to talk to your grandma. Grandma still loves you. That's all I want, my grandkids. I just hate what happened to my child. But he left some nice looking kids here for his grandma. But they want to see me like I want to see them. I'm ready for them to come back to home with their family. That's I miss them.
Well, I was trying to tell her to get the loop off my grandkids so they can call me like they used to do. But, I know she got them reeled in.
Most of the children were adults. Shara Wright was not standing in the way of the children having a relationship with Deborah Marion.
To see her basically plead to Shara to let the kids be with her, it touched my heart.
Deborah, she played it well, because no matter what you say in court to that woman, it's not going to bring your son back.
Am I able to respond?
What a moment that is. It appears that Shara is about to say something to Deborah, and everybody is on the edge of their seat.
Ms. Gaynor, you want your client to say anything at this point, sir?
Shara did want to respond. I advised her not to, because at that point, what difference does it make?
No, Miss Wright has nothing to say at this time.
She had nothing to say to me. She didn't even say, I'm sorry. You could see it on her face. She wasn't sorry.
I know what has happened to you and your family, your son, can never be undone by anything that these courts do. But I hope it brings you some closure. And I hope it allows your family to continue to heal. And again, thank you for your patience, and we'll deal with Mr. Turner's case in September now. Thank you all for being in court today.
With no trial for Shara, the city of Memphis still has a lot of unanswered questions. Next up is Billy Ray Turner's trial. This is the last chance to get some answers.
May be an understatement, but that's how Shelby County doctors are describing the ongoing challenges in fighting the current surge of COVID-19 numbers.
The trial of Billy Ray Turner is scheduled for this fall, but with everything going on in the world with COVID-19, it's unlikely that that will happen.
I absolutely plan to fight like hell for my client in that courtroom. I ask the public one thing, that if you have your preconceived notions, pay attention to it as the case is presented in the courtroom, then stand in judgment of it.
I hope that the truth comes out, and I hope that he does time for the role that he took in Lorenzen's murder.
I'm not really worried about what happened to Billy Ray in his upcoming trial. Lorenzen's dead because of sheriff.
At this point, it's unclear if Cher will ever say what happened, leaving everyone else to just simply speculate. And even I still have questions. What actually happened that night out by the Calais Cutoff Road? How did Lorenzen end up out there that night? Was there a second gunman? And who shot him? And the most perplexing question, why?
I would say the motive is that he was worth more dead than he was alive.
Ultimately, only she knows why she did it. Money, love, envy, it really is a tragic story.
Meanwhile, the people involved in the story are finding out that even 10 years later, there's no shortage of public interest in Lorenzen Wright's murder.
I got a documentary coming out. It's called A Million Reasons. You get to hear her talk for herself. You get to see a real inside look on our life. Well, you get to see, what did she spend all that money on, in detail. I don't have a monster to sell you. I'll tell you about Cheryl Wright, and you make your own decision. You'll be able to see it for yourself.
When you are the mother of 6 kids, and you married to their father, and you would see him dead, that's just evil, that's wicked.
His kids, they suffered because not only was their father taken, but their mother was taken too. There are no winners in this case.
And I know that he's looking down on them with that huge smile that he has. And he wants the best for them, and he would love for them to be a part of his mother and father's life.
Not only was he physically murdered, but then his character was assassinated. I want people to know who Lorenzen Wright was, what type of human being he was. The lies that were told earlier about drugs, too many people bought into those lies. And so we're trying our best right now to cleanse the name of Lorenzen.
The drugs, the physical abuse, his friends say none of those things are true. And he deserves to be remembered as the good family man they knew, a man they will never forget.
With Lorenzen, I be talking to his picture. And sometimes his picture could look at me a certain way, acting like it's really him. And then I had to just stop, just talk to him. He was a mommy boy, simple as that. He would still be mama's boy if he was here now. Because he's still my firstborn.
You're as cold as ice.
The last thing they would expect is to find a suitcase with a human body in it.
There was no doubt of what it was. It was a set of human legs. Oh my gracious.
The big question is, how the hell did he get there?
They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities, they'd fight. I think they liked the drama.
You're as cold as ice.
The person who did that would look like a monster, but sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
Do you still insist that you're innocent? Absolutely.
Now, the all-new Jailhouse interview.
Who do you think killed your husband?
New details, stunning audio recordings.
Is there anything else you're not telling me?
Like what? Like I killed my husband.
Did you?
No. But thanks for asking.
The secret in the suitcase.
It turns out it isn't the end of this story.
The new 2020 True Crime Event Special, next Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Do you think you know me?
What you want? Baby, I got it.
I've been down this road before.
I want respect.